All right, we're gonna give this another try. Had some technical issues for whatever reason the first go around, but hopefully this works a little better. Welcome everybody once again to the TBD Motorsports podcast. We're glad to be back after a week off for the Labor Day holiday. Hope you all got to spend some time with your family, maybe do some racing, all that good stuff. I'm here once again with my co-host Mike Dullard. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing well. How are you, John Ross?
Not too bad, not too bad for a Monday. Always, looking forward to doing this show Monday nights. Kind of helps get through that early week blues at work and stuff, and ready to talk about some racing and give each other shit and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's always the highlight of my Mondays as well.
So, a little weekend recap for the Ross Racing team. We went to I-35 Speedway as normal. Got to hang out with our previous show's guest, Dave Granger. Got to do some racing up there. He ran his pure stock. I ran the B mod. Track was pretty rough, as to be expected with all the rain, but held on. Didn't manage to not break anything. Finished sixth, so was my second best run of the year. Pretty not necessarily satisfied with it, but it wasn't too bad. And then Sunday we got to check out Old 71 Speedway, which is just opening back up in Butler, Missouri for the first time in 8 years. Went out there for a test and tune. Working on hopefully getting the promoters from that track on here sometime in the near future. So that'll be a cool guest when we get them on. But it's definitely a neat little track. And yeah, that was pretty much my weekend. Mike, I know you've been working on a another project besides just your Mustang. Tell us a little bit about what you did this weekend.
Well, Thursday, Scott and I went and picked up an IMCA B mod. We will be running up here next season. We're actually going to take it down in your neck of the woods, hopefully this weekend, as long as we get everything squared away. I'll be driving. God help us all. See if I can remember how to do this after 13 years. Hopefully it's nothing like riding a bicycle. I fell off the last time I tried to get on one. So, um, yeah, that's we just been tearing it down, double checking everything, nutting and bolting it. Just finishing up some loose ends on it, and just trying to get it put back together and ready for Saturday.
So you've been out of the driver's seat for 13 years.
13 years.
Man, I could have sworn it hadn't been that long. That's ho- hopefully the iRacing has kept you sharp.
Uh, let's hope.
So I'm showing some pictures of the car here in the background.
Yeah, the
Obviously,
old purple people eater.
yeah, Barney the dinosaur. It's had a lot of nicknames in its short life as part of the TBD family.
That is true.
So, other than the fact that it's a god awful purple color, what else can you tell us about it?
It's a 2013 BMS chassis. It's got a 602 crate, Saginaw 3-speed, Ford 9-inch with a 486 right now. We're gonna have to change that out for a couple of tracks, but other than that, I mean, it seems like a pretty solid car. Um, I think we got it for a steal, if you're gonna be honest. So, other than that, it needs a new body on it. We know that. We knew that. We went into it knowing that. There's just a few odds and ends things that we're gonna have to change over the off season. But right now, our main goal is to get it on the track and shake it down. See if there's something else that might need to be replaced during the off season. Just make sure we can get through a race without having any catastrophes or anything of that nature.
Sure. So, like we had Nick Haynes on the show a few weeks ago. He talked about kind of the differences between the sport mods and the B mods and all the various different subclasses of modifieds. Is there a particular reason why you went with the sport mod versus, say, a B mod or an A mod or whatever other sanctioning body car you could have run?
Well, as we all know, up here IMCA is king. Um, we could have went with a stock car or a hobby stock or a a modified or a sport mod. We chose the sport mod because they're relatively economical. I mean, if you're looking at any sort of racing, you're obviously not in it to make money. You're really just spending money, and that's what it boils down to. Um, but we felt like the B mod is a very competitive class up here. You've got the best of the best, and you got the worst of the worst. I mean, it's that simple. There's an in between, and hopefully we fall somewhere in there to start out with. But it's hard saying. But we chose the B mods just because the economics of it. It's relatively simple to keep going. You don't have a lot of the startup costs with a B mod as you would with an A mod or a stock car. Those are getting pretty expensive these days. Even nowadays, you look at a brand new B mod ready to race, you're looking at almost $32,000.
Well, depending on open motor versus crate and who you go
Right,
through for your chassis, and yeah,
right.
I mean, if you're talking like a big name brand chassis, yeah,
Yeah, we were looking at a brand new BMS ready to rock and roll with a new body and everything, $32,000. And I know you get in that A mod class and you're looking upwards of 50. Stock cars, you're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 45, pretty easy. Hobby stocks, you're probably right around 20 to 25. Um, but we feel like B mod is going to be a great starting point for us. It's going to kind of get me back to where I was back in the beginning. It's going to give Scott an opportunity to play with something that he's never really played with before, and I think we picked the right class. It's competitive up here. There's usually a pretty good car count. Um, there's a lot of squirrels out there, and a lot of times it looks like a circle track demolition derby in the B mods. But it is what it is. If you can get out there and get a decent car underneath you, I think you can stay away from the shenanigans that usually happens out back.
So do they use the names Sport Mod and B Mod interchangeably up there? Because around here where we have both IMCA and USRA, to kind of keep those distinguished, like people call a Sport Mod and a B Mod a B Mod. They don't really, other than the unsanctioned tracks that will run both of them. Um,
Yeah, it's something that we've all just kind of gotten used to. A B mod is a sport mod up here. IMCA has their northern sport mods and their southern sport mods. And before it was the sport mod, or before it was formally known as the sport mod, um, they called it the B mod. You had the A mod and the B mod. A mod being the big guys, B mod being the small stepchild.
And
So that's
correct me if I'm wrong on that, but actually the what they called B mod, it was originally called E mod, wasn't it?
not that I'm aware of. When they first started it out up here, I'd only known it as B mod, and then they kind of changed it to Sport mod, and I think a lot of that had to do with the USRA stuff that was starting to creep its way in up here, up into Webster City and stuff like that, where the USRA guys would come in and they were running their B mods, and we had to start calling them Sport mods because people kind of get confused on what was what and think that basically they were identical when in reality they kind of are, but you've got a few little bits and pieces that are different.
Sure. So you're actually planning on bringing the car down to I-35, which is a USRA track, to shake it down. Are you? How do you feel about a little bit of class mixing coming up there, getting ready to try to go up against the USRA boys?
You know what? The way I look at it is if I can get up there or get down there, and if I can compete with these guys and not look like a monkey fucking a football, that's going to be a win for me. I really don't care where I finish as long as I'm not in the way, as long as I'm not tearing shit up. And, if I can keep it on all fours and run till the checkers, I consider it a win.
Sure. I mean, I've been there. I mean, I guess there's maybe a little bit of shame in it, but I don't feel any shame about it. I've been beaten by some IMCA cars up there, a couple times this year. The top, the faster sport mods can definitely keep up with and compete with the B mods, even though on paper it doesn't look like they should be able to. But
Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely have some advantages, but overall, I feel like the car is relatively the same. I think the only difference is you guys run your American Racer tires versus our Hoosiers, and then you guys are allowed a quick change where we have to use your Ford 9-inch. Other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot of differences there.
I mean, we can run a J bar, we can run spring sliders. I think the shock rules are fairly similar. I'm not entirely up to speed on what the Sport Mod shock rules are. We're not allowed a spoiler, whereas you guys are, so that, depending on the track, that gains the Sport Mod back a little bit of speed. On an open motor, we're allowed 9.5 to 1 compression versus 9 to 1, and we can turn the chip up to 72 versus, I think, 7.
Yeah, 7,000 for IMCA.
Yeah, and we can run the bigger valves, the 202s and 16s, where I think you guys have to run like the 194s and 15s or whatever.
Yep.
But of course, crate, a crate is a crate, and the carburetor rules are the same, I believe, for the crates. So
Yeah, just a standard 4-barrel Holley
yeah, well,
with a spacer.
For you guys, does it have to be a Holley brand carburetor, or does it just?
They specify Holley in the rules, but I feel like there might be a little bit of fudging. There's obviously manufacturers out there for crate carbs that are not Holley, and they have been allowed. So, I mean, I'm not sure if that's one of those rules where it's basically got to be identical to a Holley as far as, jet size, bore size, etc., and they just let it go, or how that works.
Well, I know with USRA they say it has to be functionally identical to a 4150 Holley carburetor, which means you can have like a quick fuel or what's the other,
Right.
whatever some of the other ones are, Keith Thornton, any of those kind of aftermarket carburetor guys that basically, I think a lot of them take Holley parts and kind of work them over to the maximum of the rules and that kind of stuff. But that's one thing I think it's funny about the crate motor as an option, and of course we've been down this conversation road before, but one thing we didn't mention before is with the crates, guys spent crazy money on carburetors. Like, the crate is supposed to be an economical option, but then when you're spending $1,200-$1,400 on a carburetor, it kind of defeats some of the purpose of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Scott and I were looking at carburetors for this thing, and we found them as high as $1,900. I mean, hell, that's half the price of a crate motor right there.
Yeah, no shit. What kind of carb do you have on it now?
Right now, it's just the standard Holley.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got one of the cheap Proform Holley, aluminum Holley knockoff 4150s, just in case I ever have. Well, I ran it on my E-Mod motor and called it a concept motor because we have that option. But yeah, I've got that sitting around in case I ever have to slap a crate in a thing. I know that's going to be down on power to some of these guys that have the bucks out, fucking $2,000 on a carburetor.
It's going to be hard running this crate, knowing that I'm down on power from some of these guys, but I think the crate is a very economical solution to somebody doing like what we're doing. We bought the car with the crate. It was there. It's cheap to maintain. If it blows up, so be it.
Yeah. If the car handles good, you'll be fine. I mean, I know, like Nick talked about, he was running a crate for quite a while. There's a lot of guys running crates up there. It may not be a race-winning, level of horsepower, but you won't be able, unless there's something wrong with it, you won't be able to blame that for being in the way. You have to come
What are you trying to say, John?
You'll have to come up with a better excuse than that.
I was stuck behind John Ross.
It's possible. As long as I'm not stuck behind you, then I'm gonna. Especially now knowing that you've been out of the seat for 13 years. I know we've probably talked about that before, but numbers don't stick in my head sometimes for some reason like that.
Yeah, it's been a day or two. I mean, I normally drive like I'm on a racetrack, so I mean, it's not that I don't still have the skill set. It's just a matter of this is all about. It's fairly new to me as far as the suspension, the way the cars drive. When I was doing it, they didn't have this the way the cars hike up. They didn't have the rear steer built into them the way they do now. It was just your standard 3-bar suspension, 2 control arms, and a pull bar, and the rear end pretty well stayed straight. It didn't move around, it didn't float around or anything like that. So this is all relatively new to me, and I'm not sure how it's going to react, and so that's kind of my biggest concern. As I get out there, I hammer the throttle, and the fucker decides it's going to do little donuts. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll catch on pretty quick. It's as much experience as you have, and like you said, as as much spirited driving as you do anyway. I'm sure you'll be fine. Doesn't have anywhere near as much horsepower as your Mustang, probably.
No, I think the Mustang's got just a tad bit more than this thing does, but you know, we'll see what happens. I'm pretty excited, especially to debut it down there with you and you know, see what we can do on the track together.
Yeah, we'll have to get some pictures of the cars next to each other and stuff. And speaking of that, so I'm hoping by this weekend I'll have the new TBD Motorsports podcast logo, have some decals. I sent them off to my graphics guy this morning, so I'm hoping to have those back by this weekend. We'll have to get some of those on the cars.
Oh, absolutely.
Which, for those of you watching at home, you're seeing that in the background there. Hopefully, I'm an engineer and I'm a driver. I'm not much of a graphics artist, but I think it turned out all right.
Gets the point across. That's all that matters.
Yep, that's the main thing. So we're gonna have obviously those to put on our own cars, and then I'm getting some smaller ones printed. If anybody wants one for their own car, or I think what we'll probably do is anybody that's a guest on the podcast or has been a guest in the past, we'll get you some. And then if anybody wants to buy them for a couple bucks or whatever, we'll do that. Maybe get some T-shirts made at some point.
Yes, with our cartoon faces on them.
Ooh, we could probably do that. I
That
know.
would be fun.
I've got a couple friends, from my time that I've spent playing music and doing all kinds of stuff like that. I've got some friends that in the kind of art, artsy community. Might have to hit up a couple of them and see if we can get some caricatures drawn up.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome. That'd be loads of fun.
Yeah, I'll make some phone calls this week. We'll see what we can do about that. Anyway, obviously, in case you haven't noticed by now, it's just me and Mike here tonight. We're still working on getting guests lined up for the next few weeks. I don't know where the hell Scott is. He was supposed to be here, but that's the beauty of live podcasting, I suppose. If you are interested in coming on the show, by all means, hit one of us up. We've got several people that are interested. We haven't solidified any schedule yet, so every Monday night at 7. But for the time being, I think we're just going to soldier on and get on with some more motorsports-related bullshittery. Mike, did you have any talking points you wanted to address tonight?
No, I mean, there's plenty going on throughout the racing world. Obviously, we just had, for those of you privy, IMCA Super Nationals just happened this last week. That was a hell of a show. They endured quite a bit in order to get that whole show in. There was 100 and some odd races going on between Monday and Sunday, and it was nothing but rain. It was quite the catastrophe. But those guys worked their asses off to get the show in, and they managed to get just about everything in.
So did they actually get all the features in?
They cut one feature, the Sport Compact feature. They cut, which I kind of feel bad for those guys. They put in just as much time and effort as everybody else does, and they had the feature set. They had the lineup set and everything, and just time constraints kept them from running it. So they had to dole out the purse evenly throughout all the drivers. But it's kind of a shitty deal. Those guys did their thing for however long they had to, and got the shitty end of the stick. But sometimes as a promoter, you've got to make those tough choices.
Yeah,
and I think that's going to be something fun about if we can get those old 71 Speedway guys on here. I'd love to hear how all this works through a promoter's eyes versus we've got the driver's side figured out. Through a promoter's eyes, I think is going to be just a whole nother perspective, and I think it'll be an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and that was one of my goals with putting this podcast together, is trying to get some different perspectives on the racing world, and some of the various people that I'm talking to, trying to get them on the show. I don't want to name any names yet because nothing's solidified yet, but we've got people who sell parts, people who build chassis, people who manage and promote tracks. eventually I'd like to get all those kind of different corners of the dirt racing world and the local racing world on here and beyond. We got a former NASCAR Drive for Diversity member that I'm talking to try to get him on the show, him and his dad. So all kinds of different facets of the racing world. You know, everybody's got their own story and their own way of looking at things. But yeah, so the IMCA Super Nationals. Did you go up there to watch the races, or were you just watching on the stream?
Scott and I had considered going up on Friday night, and then the happened, and so we just decided we both went ahead and bought the stream for it, and we sat down and geeked out on it all week long. You know, and you know, it was kind of nice. I didn't have to worry about getting wet, didn't have to worry about ruining my shoes. You know, I just sat on my couch, got fat, and drank a lot of Dr. Pepper or some shit.
Man, don't get too fat. You got to fit through that window and make weight.
Oh, that is another thing. Holy smokes. I remember those windows being bigger.
Do you think the windows have gotten smaller, or do you think you've gotten bigger?
I'm not sure yet.
If anything, honestly, based on my limited experience, because my first car that I owned was like an early 2000s Dirtworks, and now I have the Phoenix that's, 3 years old. The new car has a much bigger window opening than the old car. So, take that for what you will.
Well, I swear to God, the windows were much taller in the old cars, and with the full containment seat, it takes a little bit out. So I kind of look silly trying to get in it, being 6'3".
If Michael Waltrip can do it, you can do it. Put in a roof hatch.
No.
No.
My luck, I'd roll that fucker over, the roof hatch would fly open, and I'd fall out.
That's what seatbelts are for.
They ain't got my arms in there.
Yeah, I suppose. So, in addition to the IMCA Super Nationals, since the last time we were on here, the NASCAR playoffs kicked off. We've been kind of busy with our guests that we've had, discussing kind of the local racing world and dirt track racing and stuff. We haven't really gotten a chance to talk about NASCAR too much. Have you been following the playoffs at all?
I have followed the playoffs. Not close, but I've been watching. I've been keeping an eye on it.
I wish they would call them race-offs or something. I mean, we're not playing NASCAR. They're racing, right. But other than that,
Yeah, semantics.
Sure.
No, I like the way they've changed it up. I like the tracks they've got in the playoffs now. The way that they've made the schedule for the playoffs, I think, really plays into having to be at your best every week. It plays to the strengths of some and the weaknesses of others, and then it plays to the weaknesses of many of them every week. Corey LaJoy.
Yeah, to be honest, like I still don't like the format. I still wish that they would just go to a full season points championship, but it's like it's normalized at this point. I can't bring myself to be pissed off about it anymore.
I mean, they've been doing it long enough to where what are you gonna? It's normal now. I mean, that's what you expect to see anymore. I think if they went to a full season points, it'd just be weird.
I don't think it would be weird. It might be weird to some of the guys who have only started following it basically, post 2003 and only know, the chase or the playoffs or whatever you want to call it. But for us guys that have been around, since, well, at least we're aware of the sport prior to that. It's funny I should say that because I didn't start watching really until 2003. But I don't think it would be that weird.
Maybe if they went back to a full points season, Jimmy Johnson would start winning again.
Yeah, I think he's running out of time for that. Maybe he would have to come back just for that.
I don't think it's going to happen.
But anyway, so the reason why I bring that up in conjunction with Super Nationals is it kind of gives me an idea. Like, the reason why I feel like the playoffs are kind of ridiculous for NASCAR is because everybody races against the same people every weekend. Whether it's the playoffs or not, the same cars are on the track, right? It doesn't, even if you're eliminated from the points, you're still there. But in the local track racing, in dirt track racing, local short track stuff, you have different divisions, you have different regions, you have different people racing against each other on a weekly basis. I feel like to crown like a national champion for, say, IMCA or whatever, a playoff system where you actually had, like, say, a track championship, and then the top few guys from the track championship go to a divisional, go to a regional, go to whatever, and actually like set it up like a playoff bracket. I feel like that would be bad.
Well, they do kind of do that. They call it the Race of Champions. They have this at the Super Nationals. They have it for the sport mods, the hobby stocks, the stock cars, and the modifieds. If you have been a track champion or a series champion, present or past, you are invited to this Race of Champions. And they put you all out in the track and have at it, boys.
I mean, so you're talking about like basically like an all-star race.
No, they have one of those too, where you're voted in. You have to win $1,000 or more show in order to be on the ballot for the all-star race.
I don't know.
This one is, I mean, if you show up to the Super Nationals and you've won a track championship or a series championship, like the Dakota Mod Tour or something of that nature, you're eligible to run in the Race of Champions. And so, I mean, basically, you've got track champions from all over the states participating in this race, and they have qualifiers for it, and then they have their A main feature.
Do they actually split it up by region and stuff, like for the qualifiers?
No.
See, that's what I think would be cool, because that's the kind of thing, like, you see this like tribe mentality, or I mean, I hesitate to call it a mob, but it's almost like a religious fanaticism, and you see it around here a lot, like with the Chiefs and whatnot, for your regular, old-fashioned sports ball teams, where everybody gets behind and rallies behind the local team. I think something, and it's kind of been tried in racing. Like, there was a series a while back that tried to have like franchises for different cities and stuff, but it never really got off the ground. But I think like if you had the different regions and the different local tracks represented, and actually had them face off specifically against each other, if nothing else, it would be good for the fans. I don't know how the drivers would feel about it, but maybe that would get kind of some more eyes on the national scale.
I'm not sure how that would. I mean, if they did something like that, would they all meet at a specified track, in their region or in their whatever?
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, if they can organize high school football in a given state into different conferences and have different divisions or whatever, and have have a like a state playoff for something like that, you should be able to do it with racing. Especially, I mean, it would be specific to a sanctioning body, I'm sure. Like, you wouldn't have UMP or USRA guys coming in racing with the IMCA guys. But IMCA for sure is big enough that they could organize something like that.
Oh, I have no doubts, and it'd be neat if you did do something like that, to where you had your 5 or 6 different regions, whatever there are, and then they all met up at Super Nationals, and it was a 6-car shootout.
Yeah, well, what I was thinking was like have it like 4 or 5 or 6 different regions, and have like the top it'd be like the top 3 from each track moves on to like the 5 local tracks would have, the top 3 from each of those tracks would show up to wherever they hold it. I don't know how you would determine. I don't know how you would determine who gets home field advantage or home track advantage. This is we're we're kind of getting off in the weeds here, but you figure out something like that. Like 5 local tracks get together, and then the top 3 guys from that would go to the state championship, and the top 3 guys from that would go to the regional championship, and then the top 3 guys from that would go to the national championship.
It could be interesting. I mean, I don't know what kind of hoops you'd have to jump through to make something like that happen, but it'd definitely be interesting.
My ballpark estimate is somewhere around a metric fuck ton. That's probably why it hasn't happened.
Yeah, it'd take a lot of collaboration with a lot of different people to make something like that happen.
Sure. I don't know. Just a thought. But so, do you have any predictions on who you think's going to go all the way to win the Cup championship this year?
I think I'm on board with just about anybody else. It's going to be between Hamlin and Harvick. I mean, you cannot deny what those guys have done all season long. They have just been the dominant force. If somebody else comes in and does it, kudos to them. They have put in their homework. Um, obviously Truex is always right there with them. You've seen a few glimmers out of Kurt Busch and some of these other guys, but I just feel like it's going to be a battle to the end with Harvick and Hamlin.
If you look at the full season points and stuff, I think that kind of you're probably right on that. But Keselowski has gotten lucky. Keselowski has gotten lucky at the right times, and there's a couple other guys that I wouldn't be surprised to see Kyle Busch win it without winning a race. I think that'd be hilarious.
I don't think it'd be hilarious, just because that would piss me off because it's Kyle Busch. I honestly, the way Chase Elliott runs, he's either hot or he's cold. And I expect him to be either out the second round or he's going to go all the way to the final four.
Yeah, Joey Logano, you can never really count him out. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are good at a lot of these tracks that are coming up. So
Yeah,
it's
I
gonna
think
be
that's what I like about the way they've reformatted the schedule in the chase in the playoffs is they've changed it around. They've put some tracks that I think a lot of different guys that you don't normally see doing well in the playoffs will persevere at.
so. We've just been graced with the presence of our other co-host Scott Seaman. Scott, how are you doing this evening?
No, he's got laryngitis.
Oh, well, he joined the server at least.
He's doing sign language right now. If you can hear him,
I could
he's shouting.
clap twice if you're in Milwaukee. Okay, well, we'll just continue. Scott, if you feel like chiming in, just interrupt one of us because we'll just kind of go on the assumption that.
Yes, please give us a break.
Oh boy, what about Austin Dillon? Do you think he's? I mean, he's hot these last couple of races. Do you think he's for real, or do you think that's just a fluke?
I think it's a fluke.
I kind of hope you're right. I can't stand the guy,
I
but
can't either. I really do not want to see him succeed. And I know that sounds awful because everybody has worked really hard to get where they get. And I know he's put in the time, but I just don't feel like the efforts have had to be there for him. I don't mind. Ty has suffered the hardships of being with Germain Racing for how many years now? He hasn't really been under the wing of Grandpa as much as Austin has been. I know Germain Racing is kind of a spin-off of RCR.
well,
But
sort of.
and they're really their own thing.
Yeah,
So Ty he hasn't had the luxury of working for RCR, which can give him basically whatever he wants and still have a mid-pack car, um, but which is sad. But Ty's really put in the efforts, and he seems like a real down-to-earth kid, and he doesn't have that giant ego that Austin has, and I don't know what it is that's the difference.
yeah. I can't really picture Ty dabbing after he wins a race.
Or sliding across the grass on his belly and smacking his face in the turf.
At least that was funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
But
Can you guys hear me now?
there you go.
Hey, there he is.
He's alive.
I have no idea what happened, but all of my, uh, or when I went in to check my hotkey button, it had like 10 of them listed, and I've only ever used one.
Huh.
Either who, I'm here now.
So you just had to press buttons basically until something worked.
Oh, I just had to remove them all and then re-add the one I normally use. It's a new PC build, so that could be part of it. I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, we're certainly happy to have you on the show. We kind of already early on we talked about the new car and Mike's plans for getting behind the wheel. You want to share a little bit about what your part or what your involvement in that project is?
I'm just here to help, basically. Um, I'm to a point where, like right now, I don't even have a place to put a car, but Mike's got a shop he works at, so we bought a car and um, we're gonna do our damnedest to make it competitive and hopefully
Yes.
have some fun.
That's the whole thing I want behind it is I want to have some fun. I know you don't go out there and make money doing this shit. You're just out there to spend it and have fun. So that's my main goal is to go out there, have fun, not get too worked up about anything.
So, are you guys going to be running the car as TBD Motorsports, or is there another Mike and Scott team name?
We never really thought of we've been so concerned with what we need to do to get it on the track, we haven't even.
We haven't even discussed. We haven't even talked about what color it's going to be, or numbers, or team names, or anything
Purple.
like that.
Yeah, that was
Well,
gonna,
yeah,
that was
it's
going to
gonna it's gonna be purple right now.
that was going to be my next question, was if you had a number picked out. Obviously, the 57T was the previous owner, so
Yeah, that's all gone now.
yeah. That's the two pictures I've got are before and after of you pulling the decals off of it. So
Well, I think and we've done this before, I think, kind of like with when we ran like Daytona and stuff, we combined all three of our numbers and did we combine them and then average them, or I don't remember how we did it.
that's what we did for the iRacing deal. They averaged out to 30, and so that's what we went with. But
So we're either going to do that or, I'm 11, Mike's 15. We could just add them together and be 26.
there you go, Ricky Bobby. I like it.
Ricky Bobby.
There's actually a guy down here that runs an E-Mod, and I don't know if he still does, but he was running under the name Ricky Bobby there for a while.
Ah.
I think his real name is like Rick Couch or something like that, so I guess he decided that Ricky Bobby sounded faster than a couch.
I could just sign in as Mike Honcho.
I wonder if he's related to the guy that ran for president in 2016 as D's Nuts.
Okay, so is the Mike Honcho thing, is that a reference, like, was Talladega Nights referencing something else, or was that original to Talladega Nights?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
I
Oh,
never really. I was afraid to Google it for what I might find.
yeah, I wouldn't do that if I were you. But no, I like
And end
that.
up with an STD.
I like that idea a lot.
It probably involves some music that goes. "Ns, ns, ns."
Well, if it isn't Mike Honcho himself.
You think they'd frown on that if I did sign in like that?
Nah, if they allow Ricky Bobby, they got to allow Mike Honcho, right?
One would think.
One would think.
What's this? Are you in a hosted race, Mike?
I am. It's that series I was telling you about, that IROC series for the trucks.
Oh man, how do I get in there?
Oh, you don't.
Oh man.
It's done.
You guys doing some iRacing?
I am, yeah.
I'm not. I also, I don't know, John, if you've been on iRacing since the update, but I don't. They like changed the homepage.
Did they? Are they forcing you to use like the new interface?
Well, like you know how it used to look.
Yeah.
The only time I can ever get back to that page is if I go into a race and then come back out, then I'll be there. But I haven't figured out how to get there without doing that.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I haven't been on iRacing in quite some time, so not really looking forward to relearning how to use it. But is it just me, or especially since the pandemic and like the popularity of sim racing took off, has the iRacing community seemed to get more toxic to you guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Like there's times where I just completely want to be totally done with official races. There's zero respect, and it's whether you start up front, in the middle, in the back, it doesn't matter. You could hang out a lap and pull out on the track, and some idiot will wreck you.
and now, like, the open races, you got, like, all these different setup shops, quote unquote, that are selling setups. I mean, I can't think of a bigger bitch move that exists than buying a setup for a virtual car on a racing simulator.
Yeah, and the problem is, I mean, we did try it there for a while, but I don't remember if it was the Ramsey deal or what that we got into, and somebody shared a set to everybody, and we checked, and it was identical to the VRS stuff.
Yeah.
So what would be the point in even doing that when if people are going to pay for it just to give it away to other people for free? I mean, that's stupid.
Well, good for those people for screwing up that economy, because it's ridiculous to me. Like, okay, so either it's a game, in which case setting up the car is part of the game, so you're paying someone else to play part of the game for you, or it's a quote unquote simulator, and you're treating it like real racing, and you're still paying somebody to set your car up for you. Like, either way, you're a bitch. That's all.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna totally disagree with you, but I mean, there's a lot of people out there that they have no idea. They wouldn't have the first clue on how to set up a car, especially on a video game.
Well, then either do fixed races or learn. Because before all this happened, before all the
Is this not the land of opportunity, John?
it is the land of, well, fine. If when it comes to sure, from a capitalist standpoint, if you can make money selling setups, there's nothing morally wrong with that. But if you're buying them, then you're a bitch. That's all there is to it. Mic drop.
I'm gonna throw a ish on that.
You're a bitch ish.
Mic drop ish.
Oh.
I mean, it all just depends on what you're doing. If you want to run fixed races, and that's the problem with it now, though, is that if you're not running, if you're paying for a service for a setup, but you have all these other people paying for the same exact setup, what's the difference between that and a fixed race?
Extra steps.
Yeah, and money.
And money.
So from that point of view, yeah, it's stupid. Which is why I don't partake in it anymore. But the other aspect of it that I did like is that they would post very, very, very detailed videos of the best way to get around road courses and stuff. All tracks, ovals, and whatnot. But for me personally, I struggle on road courses, so I found it very beneficial as far as that goes.
Yeah. I mean, some of, like, the driver coaching stuff that they had, I mean, I guess you could argue that that's a legitimate service. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way as someone who's been involved in sim racing much longer than I've been involved in actual racing, to see it turning into what it's turning into. Because that, for so long, sim racing avoided the pitfalls of real racing, where it's so money dependent. And if you had talent, it didn't matter if you had a $90 wheel that you got on clearance at Walmart. If you had talent, you could show it. And now you've got people buying setups and buying coaching time and whatever else. It boggles my mind. But
there was
the times they are changing.
Right. And just for reference, there's a guy selling a sim rig right now for $27,000.
Yeah.
And I commented on there, and I was like, why don't you sell that and buy a real race car? Or save your $27,000 and buy a real race car?
Yeah.
That's what boggles my mind. Why? There is no way in hell I would spend that kind of money for a computer setup.
Yeah. I mean, real racing is an intimidating thing to get into, but if you really if you really love the sport and you have the wherewithal to do it, which you obviously do if you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on simulator equipment.
But yeah, that means that you're invested in it to a point to where you take that shit seriously.
You're doing everyone, yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing the sport a disservice by playing video games instead of doing it for real.
Yeah.
Some of it, I do wonder sometimes, like before you got on, Scott, we were talking about like how the Sport Compact class got the shaft basically at Super Nationals. And, like we had my neighbor Cody on here as one of our first guests who races a Sport Compact. And we all see, the meme pages and stuff like Infield Tractor Tire ripping on those guys constantly. I wonder sometimes if there isn't a little bit of elitism. I mean, obviously there is, but if it's not hurting the sport, some of the elitism that goes on. Because there's guys that could get into racing at a lower level and build off of that, and they probably think, oh, well, I don't want to just run a Sport Compact. I'd rather play iRacing. Whereas we should be encouraging people to get in at whatever level they can get in, because the sport needs an entry level like that to get people involved and let them learn the ropes.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we give all kinds of shit about the outlaw front-wheel drive class that our best friend Kyle raced. But in all reality, I respect the front-wheel drive guys just as much as I do, the A mods or the late models. They put in the late nights, they put in the time, the efforts, the travel, just like the rest of us do. And I don't really think they deserve any less respect.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing that people need to take into consideration the next time they want to talk shit about the Sport Compacts. 9 times out of 10, if you got Sport Compacts running at your track, there's quite a few of them. And a little fun fact about that is that car count dictates payouts a lot of times. So without a lot of them little bumblebees running around that track, your payouts might not be what they are.
Yep, they're paying the bills, keeping the lights on, keeping the promoters and the concession stand workers and the infield workers and everybody paid. I think we can all agree that Kenny Wallace is one cool dude. But one of my favorite little videos of his was where he was basically giving his motto is, as long as you're racing, brother. And he was basically saying, like, doesn't matter if you're running a kart, Sport Compact, or if you're running an A mod or a late model, as long as you're racing. And that I think there needs to be more of that attitude.
Agreed. A racer is a racer, no matter what you're driving.
Yeah, that. I get annoyed, like at one of our tracks around here, they run them little mini sprints, the micro sprints or whatever, and it's just caution after caution after caution, and there's like 40 of them fuckers out there every time. But at the same time, without them being out there, it would only hurt the track.
Oh yeah, for sure, and especially when you're out there racing. I mean, I think we can all agree too, when the visor comes down, there's no more thinking about anything else, and that's when it's okay to be selfish. So when you're sitting in the car waiting to go out for your feature, and the Sport Compacts just had their second red flag, and Billy Bumfuck is trying to fight his cousin over his sister in the infield. Yeah, you're pissed off. You're like, get these guys out of here. We don't need these guys. But you're not in the right mindset when you're getting ready to go drive a race car to be thinking about what's overall good for the sport. And overall, what's good for the sport is to have more people racing.
Well, and not only that, but you put competitive people in anything with wheels and an engine, and they're going to take that shit seriously. I mean, what was it, last year or the year before when we all got together and did go-kart racing, and it was like, we all wanted to win.
It was cutthroat.
It was. Yeah. Chris Watkins nearly got killed by a little kid, and
little kid twice his size.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a 4-year-old.
Yeah. Chris got out of the car and
48 months.
And he pointed up at the kid's chin and told him to fuck off.
You better walk away, hard ass.
As much as it would have sucked to see Chris get arrested hundreds of miles from home and probably face serious repercussions in his family life. I really wanted to see him fight that kid. That's the other thing, though, is like, of all the fights I've seen at the racetrack, I feel like about 80% of them have been either in like the cruiser or the sport compact class. So I don't know what the socioeconomic factors behind that statistical aberration are, but
One can only assume.
indeed.
So we already talked about NASCAR too.
Well, you kind of came in the middle of it. We were talking about our projections for the playoffs, and I threw out a harebrained scheme of adapting playoffs and regions and divisions and stuff into determining a national dirt track champion. And Mike told me I was stupid, and we, we concurred that Austin Dillon is a Ponce. I'm sure there's always more to be talked about. I know Bubba Wallace is, in the news again for he's not coming back to RPM next year, so there's that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
You reckon he's going to Ganassi?
I mean, wouldn't that just kind of be the most ironic place for him to go?
In a way, depending on what definition of ironic you're going off of, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure you can, you understand.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It would be, things would have certainly come full circle.
Yes.
Well, what would have really been things coming full circle, I guess, would be if Kyle Larson came back and raced for RPM, but I don't see that happening.
Nah, he doesn't want to suck.
No.
I feel like on dirt, his talent could make up for an ill-handling car, but in the Cup Series, especially with this stupid 500 horsepower package, you can't. If the car's not right, then you're just going to go backwards.
Yeah. It's funny, actually. I really see a lot of comparisons and a lot of similarities between Bubba Wallace's driving style and Kyle Larson's.
Yeah.
Because on a short run where they don't, where tires don't mean shit. I mean, Bubba can drive up there and pass guys that he shouldn't have any business passing, but give it another 10, 20, 30 laps and he's going backwards again.
Yep.
So
but that probably gives him confidence, just being able to get up there.
Oh yeah, and I think if he gets a car underneath him that is balanced and that he's not having to drive the piss out of to get speed out of, I really do think he can compete at the Cup level. I mean, I know lately he's gotten a lot of flack for other non-racing related things, but I personally believe on talent he belongs in the Cup Series. I'm excited to see if he is able to get a top level ride, what he's able to do with it.
Well, he's got sponsors that are going to come with him, so he could probably go about anywhere he wants to.
Yeah, well, allegedly he has an offer from Ganassi, which is why I said that. But
yeah,
there's
just like allegedly Eric Jones is going to go to the 48, but we'll see.
So, is there any actual credible rumors surrounding that, or is that just speculation?
Well, I'm sure it's probably kind of speculation, but there's a guy that he's kind of like the Sports Center guy for NASCAR, and I follow him on Facebook. And that's what he posted yesterday, was that he thinks that that's where he'll go. But he also said it won't be the 48. He says they think that they'll ditch the 48 and go back to the 5.
I mean, it would make sense to retire the number if the sponsors are okay with it.
Well, they didn't retire the 24.
No.
And without the 24, there wouldn't have been a 48. So.
True.
I mean, there would have, like with Mike Skinner, but.
I don't know, Mike. What do you think? Eric Jones to the 48. Does that make any sense to you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Really?
I can't really. I can't. And it was the same way with Jeff Gordon. I don't feel like they found somebody that fit the car the way that Gordon did. And I have a hard time seeing that 48 out there with anybody other than Jimmy Johnson. I feel like it would be the same, and the same with Dale Jr. Alex Bowman was a good kid. He does a decent job, but it's just, it's you put somebody with a car and with a number and with a team for so long like that. I mean, it's nothing seems to fit right.
Well, what about, I mean, numbers aside, does Eric Jones to Hendrick Motorsports make sense to you?
No.
I'm biased because of my dislike for Kyle Busch and KBM. I'm biased against Eric Jones, so I'll admit that I'm coming from that standpoint. But I don't think I would rather see Ross Chastain or something like that, or someone like that get that ride versus someone like Jones, who's already had a chance in a top level ride.
Oh yeah, same here.
But then again, that's the same car that Joey Logano climbed into and didn't really do shit in for several years before going to Penske and having a career revival. So
Yeah.
so maybe Jones could be a champion in that car. There's only one way to find out.
Did you guys also hear the rumor that Denny Hamlin's gonna buy into or start a Cup team?
Yeah,
Yes.
I did hear that rumor.
I heard the rumor was regarding the 43 team.
Yeah, and then there's another one going around about Spire Motorsports.
Yeah. Well, of course, Mike, you mentioned Germain earlier, and they're supposedly selling out at the end of the year. So there's a lot of well, Spire has already bought the 95 charter, correct?
Yep. Yeah, so they'll be 2 teams deep.
Yeah. Well, eventually, maybe all the top level guys will pull out, and it'll be nothing but shitbox teams, and then the competition will be close again.
Yeah, it'll be nothing but fucking wrecks. It'll look like Super Nationals.
And we have
Man,
come
that was-
full circle.
That was
Yes.
brutal.
Be a giant fucking dumpster fire.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Super Nationals while circling around the fact that the actual racing pretty much blew.
Yeah,
It wasn't
this
really
is-
the racing itself. It was the track conditions that they were forced to
Yeah.
drive on.
And that's what I was going to say. This is just one of those years for Super Nationals that you just throw the whole thing in the garbage and wait till next year and start over. Because it was, the weather just really ruined it. That and Boone ruins it too, I feel like. And people argue with me about this, and it really annoys me. But, they had some races, like the last chance qualifier races were really good. They were racing from top to bottom. And then they go out there and they farm that fucking track.
What's the reasoning behind that?
That is an excellent question, John.
That's a question that's been asked so many times and never gets an answer.
I've had answers, but the answers to me just don't. Like, I've had people tell me that Boone won't take rubber, which I disagree. I've seen it take rubber myself in late model features. I've heard him say that the track will just remain dusty, and the track basically what happens is it's almost a clay-like substance, and it just balls up, and then you get all these little tiny balls on top of the surface, and then it makes it nearly impossible to drive on. I've heard lots of different theories.
So then either fix the surface or take Super Nationals somewhere else if it's really that bad.
There's been talk
Boone,
of them taking somewhere else.
they're not going to do that though, because IMCA owns part of Boone Speedway now, so it's not going anywhere.
See, USRA Nationals, they move that around every few years. Why couldn't they do something like that with IMCA?
That's what they used to do. They used to move it around, but they don't anymore, and that's why. I mean, when you own something, you want it to make money.
Yeah, I mean, they had them at Webster City. They've had them at Knoxville. And then they've been at Boone since like 1989 or something of that nature.
Yeah,
Wow.
something like that.
Seems to me like the whole thing is almost more of a spectacle than it is a race.
I mean, I've been there and saw some really, really good races. in the past, especially the All-Star race. That's the one I always look forward to, and I haven't even watched it yet. I heard Ricky just drove away with it.
Nah, I don't think so. No, that was the one he was running with Ike.
So are you guys thinking about, depending on how next year goes, are you thinking about taking your car up to Super Nationals or no?
It's in the talks.
Yep, it's in the discovery phase.
Well, I think we're all looking
We'll
for.
talk Super Nationals when we figure out what the fuck it does down at I-35.
Fair enough. Well, I think we're all looking forward to seeing what happens there. So we're just past the hour mark here. We've somehow managed to bullshit our way through the past hour without really any rhyme or reason to our discussion, but we made it. Any closing thoughts from you, gentlemen?
Real quick, John, I know we talked about it for a second in your group chat, but I was wanting to hear how last weekend went.
Yeah. In case anybody missed it at the start, ran sixth at I-35 on Saturday. I think they didn't get the rain on Saturday, but they had kind of the same issues as Boone was having, where it had just rained all week and it was hard to get the track into good shape, and they did as good a job as they could, but it was rough, but survived it, and then went out to Old 71 Speedway in Butler on Sunday. It's a really neat little track. They're having their opening night October 10th, and even though it's not like a USRA sanctioned track, I'm planning on going out there to check it out. Got to make a handful of laps out there, and it's a really it's not asymmetrical like shape wise, but it is banking wise. Like one and two have way more banking than 3 and 4, and that's kind of unique around here in terms of dirt tracks. So I'm looking forward to running there.
What nights do they run?
They're going to be running Saturdays. They said so the track is opening up after sitting vacant basically for 8 years.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they're getting it back into raceable shape. They've had some test and tunes. Here in a couple weeks, they're having an enduro on the 27th, I think, and then October 10th they're opening up, and they basically said they'll run until it gets too cold, and then plan on coming back, full time next season. So,
sweet.
Yeah, was trying to talk Mike into bringing the car, you guys' car down one of these nights, but I know it's a long drive because they run, since they're unsanctioned, they're going to be running like their B mod class is open to B mods and sport mods. It should be a good time. Well, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time out of your evenings to do the show again. Hopefully, these next few weeks we'll have some guests coming on. Like I said, I'm in talks with several people. But if you guys have anybody you want to bring along, by all means, just let me know and we'll get them on the show.
I'm gonna get my wife on here. She'll tell you guys all about racing.
Oh yeah.
Yep, she's the knower of all.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Mike, any closing thoughts from your camp there?
Mike's busy racing.
Oh. Well,
You can tell because he's not talking.
yeah, I guess so.
What a dick.
Yep. All right, well, until next time, fellas. Have a good evening.
Same time next week.
Yep, same bat time, same bat channel.
I'll try and be on time next time.
By all means.